What do I do if my partner cheats?
Okay, guys, we're going to read a quick review before we get rolling. This is called Sound and Relatable Wisdom. It says, having this podcast to listen to for examples and experience similar to my wife and I has been a crucial part of my recovery. We are so grateful for you guys, or we are so grateful you guys decided to make the most out of the struggle of sex addiction and share your experience and stories with the world. So grateful. Thank you. It's a very generous and kind review. We're grateful for it. And if you guys have, if you're listening and haven't yet rated and reviewed, please do so. It helps people find this podcast. And actually is a way that you can help and you can pay it forward is just by leaving a review. And I just want to give one little note, guys, before we jump into the episode. We're in the throes of quarantine from COVID-19. So we're recording this remotely. So audio will not be up to snuff like we like it, but we're doing our best. So
I got the good audio. Coby, can you hear it? Smooth voice. Yeah.
Not Coby and I.
I'm on our normal equipment in our podcast studio. So I hope it doesn't kind of show your guys how bad yours is, but
it does. And it's okay.
We're doing the best we can, right?
That's right.
Considering the circumstances. So, all right. Should we talk about what to do if your partner cheats?
Yes.
We just want to lay out the options, things that I think from all of our experience, one, you guys have been through this personally yourselves. So you reacted and you've responded in your own lives, but you guys also work with a bunch of people and you see all of the different things that people try and people do when infidelity happens. And so we just want to break down what the different options are. So should we just dive right in?
Yeah, this is one that is it's interesting. My recall in on this specific topic is just really heightened. My recall on this, it's something that I can go back to because of the traumatic events that took place. I can remember all this stuff. I can remember exactly the range of thoughts that I had. Should I just share like one of the first ones?
Sure.
Okay. So when I knew, for example, in the first affair, which was an emotional affair, I still remember exactly where I was. I remember I was when I was caught, like when I got the email, and I was in a hotel room in Southern California on a business trip. And I remember sitting in a chair next to the bed, right next to the window, and reading this email. And I remember being flooded, totally flooded with fear, with shame, with guilt, with disbelief, with just denial. Like this is where things are. All of the repercussions of that event just raced through my head, like what this would mean for me, for the affair partner, for Ashlynn, for this man who just wrote me. It was instant torture. And I remember just like spinning in disbelief for a long time. And the same with the second affair, getting the text from the husband saying, you know what, I know. There were all kinds of things that like options that went through my head. And I can just still remember how crushing it was, like my soul. It was just horrendous in both situations, especially the second one where I was like, wait, this happened again. But I remember wanting to just, in both instances, I just wanted to like leave. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to go away. I wanted out of the horrible situation. I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to face it. I was just freaked out about the idea of Ashlynn, you learning of it. And it was just this, I want to shrink and hide. Where's the biggest mountain and how do I get all the way underneath it so I can just hide? it was a total shame fest. That was like my first thought.
It's interesting,
that.
Coby, it's interesting hearing it from your perspective, that when it all kind of starts coming out, it's whether you disclosed it, whether you got busted, whatever happens, it's a highly emotional time when a lot of things happen, and there's a reason why you remember it so vividly, because there's so much emotion going on. And from the betrayed side of things, there's trauma going on that, and so, the reaction to it, the response to it can vary in so many different ways.
Yeah.
One of the first things, one option to do if infidelity happens is just plain and simply is to leave, to end the marriage.
I totally thought that, Brandon. I thought that was like the sure option in both instances. And I was like, if I can get out of this, then it'll be okay, right? It was kind of like getting caught was like, okay, this is the evidence of all the things I've thought before, which is like, I should have left. I wanted to leave. I totally had that thought.
Right. And it's interesting. I think every situation is unique. But I think either side can have that feeling of wanting to bail, wanting to get out, wanting to leave. Ashlynn, did you have that?
It's the same. I wanted to run away. It's that escape. It wasn't that I wanted to divorce Coby. That it was like those didn't go together, even though I'm wanting the same thing, right? I don't want to be with this person who's really hurt me and lied, and all the things I thought I knew are no longer there.
Right.
So yeah, the running, absolutely. I felt that. And it's interesting because Coby's affairs, we lived with his addiction to pornography for so long, and we did have a lot of the denial of like, it's not happening. And then when the affair came, that first one, it was an emotional affair. And so a lot of what I was told was like, it's not as bad as you think, because, you're so lucky he didn't actually go there. And so I was really basically told, like, just get over it.
Chill out, Ashlynn.
Yeah, like, it's not that big a deal. And so I'm like, okay. And I felt like I had really lost my voice anyway. I'd lived with this tiptoeing around relationship for so long anyway, that I really just, okay, I guess just get over it. And then 6 years later, okay, it's happened again, but this time it's worse.
Well, okay, Ashlynn. So you're kind of talking about a different option, which, so if you find out you're betrayed, you find out you're hurt, you can just be like, I'm out, peace out, done. Like, and I just want to say, like, that might be an okay option, a good option, the best thing to do. The road ahead can be really hard. Divorce is hard, but it might be an okay option. The next option is kind of what you were talking about, Ashlynn, which is like, okay, hope
for the best.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stick in this and hope that something changes. Like, I've been hurt, but now, like, I just hope things change, because, like, you're being told by other people, like, chill out. What you went through isn't that big a deal, Ashlynn.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
totally go to the comparison and like, well, they're going through way harder stuff, and
grin and bear it.
Totally.
And hope that that you're not hurt again, right? And I actually think, and I think we have to say this, there's some real goodness to choosing that. And let me explain. You want your marriage to work. You want your family to be together. And so it's just hanging on. It's just saying, I'm going to hang on, and I'm going to actually take the brunt of a lot of this pain and a lot of this stuff, just because I want to keep things together, and I want to hope that things change. right? So that's not it's
Totally.
not a
It
horrible
wasn't
thing
terrible.
to do. Like, yeah, you're not a
It got
bad
us to where we're
person.
at.
Yeah.
You know, it was part of our past. And so I would agree with that. And honestly, we weren't in a place where there was like physical abuse happening or something like where I really needed to get out of our relationship. It was just, I was very disconnected. I was unhappy. I was hurt. And so it was like, we still had a lot of great moments. And then this like really heavy, big elephant in the room that we just didn't talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. So you enjoy the good stuff and
Yeah.
you're grateful for that, but to step into the hard and to really work through the pain of it all, for actual real change to shift, didn't happen. So you sit back and you like hope and you hope and you hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing is, Brannon, and I don't know if this is what you see in some of your clients, but because I really was so numb of, you know, I knew I was mad, I knew I was hurt, but I didn't know anything beyond that, that I didn't even understand that choosing to do anything different would be harder, which kind of
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. But
Uh-huh.
for me, it was like, this is my option, is either divorce or I stay. And I didn't really see anything
Oh,
else.
that's a great point. Like and we can call it naivety or
Yeah.
just like you don't know what you don't know. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna grin and bear this. It's the noble thing to do. But what you didn't realize was, just grinning and bearing this won't really get us to where we
Yeah.
want to be, right? Like there's something more that you could do, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting because you, Ashlynn, are really you're awesome. You're unique in this way, in that you've been that kind of like, I'm just gonna hope for the best. I'm gonna hang in there, versus being educated and empowered and really understanding what your own recovery is and all of those things. And so you can really speak to, there is such a big difference between those two things,
Mm.
right?
Oh,
So
yes. Yes, there was. And yeah.
Well, I think there's something to say about that, because I shared the same naivete, Brennan, that you just talked about, because I had that, like, hey, I'll just stay, we'll just stay, I'll stay, and I'll just hope for the best. And what that really meant is like, especially with the first affair, I remember having the conversation with you, Ashlynn. I remember we were sitting in the front room where the TV was. I remember the color of the couch that we had. I remember it was a Sunday afternoon and we were just like in cozy pajamas. And I remember telling you, and it was just like, okay, I've told you, now let's just, part of hoping for the best is like, let's just move on from this, because I was
Yeah.
told we can move on from this. Like, it's not that big of a deal. I remember having those conversations with you. Let's just hope for the best. Here it is. And let's just move on. But
Yeah.
the, really, there was enormous amounts of denial, I'm sure, that was in me, just saying, I just want this to go away. Like hoping for the best for me really looked like, can I just admit to this and then have this just go away? Can we just say, this is on the table now, let's just move on? And I really held on to, that was for the first one. The second one, it was like, oh my gosh, like, I really do want to hope for the best, but I don't know if that's even going to work this time. And I was very much hoping for some kind of pie in the sky Powerball ticket winner solution to come out of my ear or somewhere. Because
Well,
I didn't know what to do, but I just knew.
you
It's
did
like,
force, not force, that's the wrong word. You did get us into therapy. And so we did start with something after that second, no, we started before your second affair. We did start going to a family therapist.
yes, and
So
we'll
so
talk
we
about
were
that.
getting some tools of like how to at least not get divorced
Yeah,
is really what we were doing.
oh, okay, that leads to kind of the third thing that I see a
Yes.
lot of, which is unknowingly getting, one of the first responses is unknowingly getting the wrong kind of help. And this one, it drives me crazy a little bit, because really what we start to see is therapy induced trauma,
Mm-hmm.
or it's
therapy-induced trauma.
yeah,
Okay.
it's
Trauma
a
sounds
type.
horrible as it is, but like therapy-induced, Brandon, what on the green earth does that look like?
Therapy-induced trauma is a type of betrayal trauma where, and we talked. We really should do a full episode just on this, where you realize, oh my gosh, some things are not working in our marriage and in our lives. You go to a therapist who isn't specialized or really understands what is going on, and they do further damage to you and to your relationship. And I'll give you some examples. um, some therapists, some platforms are very much about control and fear and force, that they drive people further into a victim stance and push couples further apart. But it works to get people in the door, because if you validate somebody's pain and their betrayal, they are vulnerable to say, yes, at least you know what I'm going through. This feels good. I'll do whatever you tell me. But then they continue to just validate that pain and push you further into a victim stance. Causes all kinds of problems. There's more subtle ways that aren't that don't do well. They do a lot of damage. Things like, if there's an addiction there, along with the betrayal, along with the affair, you go into a couples therapist who's trained in EFT. Now, EFT is one of the best modalities for couples therapy. It stands for emotionally focused couples therapy. But Sue Johnson, the developer of EFT, has specifically said if there's addiction there, then you don't just start right in on EFT. You're pushing connection that won't actually work or won't actually happen, because there's this attachment issue of the addiction going on. And so the couple gets very frustrated. The wife feels very like she's got to go further than she wants to with attachment without the foundation of trust there. The trust keeps getting broken, but the therapist is like, look, you got to just do this, and it works and it works and it works. If they don't understand betrayal trauma, they don't understand sex addiction, then and they don't really understand recovery, then they cause problems. And one of the hardest. Go ahead, Ashlynn.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just thinking back to our experience of that, and it really is, you don't know what you don't know, because we went for 18 months and we were going weekly. We were investing in ourselves. We were really trying to make efforts. And yet every week we would go, it was like, why are we just going and telling her this fight we had this week? Like, we are wasting our time. We are not getting anywhere with this. We also were not honest. So she didn't really know about what Coby was doing and what he had done.
Because I was in the middle of
having a second affair
while we were going.
Talk about futility.
Right.
There.
So part of it is like, yes, she wasn't the right fit for our circumstance, but we also weren't honest, and we weren't vulnerable enough to say, this is where we're at and we need help.
Right.
And I really think that although it was, again, part of our story and it is what it is, it really just kept us so stuck for so long, because I was investing, I believed I was doing steps to move forward. Yet every week when we'd go, I would feel like, what in the heck did we just do?
Yeah. Well, I just real quick, Brandon, and I want to share this with you just so you can give some more context on this, because this is related to the hope for the best kind of concept, where I was like, let's go to therapy, let's hope for the best. And we just found somebody that was on our health insurance list to pay a copay. And we legit were like, hoping for the best was saying, let's just go get some help. And we didn't even realize that that we can get the wrong kind of help that set us back even further than what happened. Now, I shared the fact that I had an addiction. I shared the fact that I had like an emotional affair, but it was like, without facing it, without understanding that there's the right kind of help and there's specializations for this. I was pissed every time we left, for like a mile and a half down the road.
Every time Coby would go in and say, I just want to connect. I can't, we're so disconnected, right? Well, of course we're disconnected. So when we would try to drill down on what is this connection you're trying to seek, it always came around to sex. And it was like, if only this, and then if only that. And so of course it just, she was trying to figure out why the heck I was so closed off and why I was feeling this like, well, I had giant walls up around my sexuality. And she's like, are you sure you weren't abused? Are you sure? It was like, why can't we make sense of what's going on here?
You were being cheated on.
Yes. And I look back now and I'm like, oh, I actually did write her after we figured out and found help. I was like, I am so sorry, because it's not really your fault.
And after we shared with her, like, hey, FYI, Coby was actually having his second affair while we were seeing you.
Okay, so
total mess.
So you guys, there's two things, and this is what I'm hearing is, one, the therapist needs to know what they're doing and like really actually know what they're doing, not think they know what they're doing or pretend like they know what they're doing. Okay. And two, the client needs to be humble and ready to actually do their work. And it amazes me. I do intakes a lot. And when I do intakes, I'll meet with people and they're like, yeah, we've been meeting with a therapist for 4 years. And, you know, and they're like, we're worse off now than we were. So something's broken. Either them as clients aren't showing up to the table fully honest and willing to engage in a healing process, or that therapist doesn't know what the heck they're doing. And you know, if they could just take a step back and out and really analyze this and look at it, they'd realize, oh my gosh, like this is not working. We keep paying all this money. We keep spending all this time. We keep putting forth all this effort, but it's not working. And I just want a fair warning, just because somebody speaks powerfully, like they know what they're talking about, it doesn't mean that they actually do. So how to actually figure out that they know what they're talking about, there's a couple of things, okay? And I'll go through these really fast. One is that they have some real life examples of people that they have worked with that they've been successful with. That's really helpful and important.
So do you ask for that, Brannon? Just curious.
Well,
what do we do?
It's hard to get, but yeah, you can.
Okay.
I have plenty of people that people could talk to. Now, I don't want new clients right now, but my point being is yes, I have people that I've worked through the process and are, you know, would definitely back me up. And now, you know, if they don't have that, then, you know, also another thing to look at is, like, for example, our podcast. You can listen to 150 episodes of what we do and what our platforms are. So people can hear us and hear our voices and really get a feel for, do we know what we're talking about? Is, you know, does their intuition and their gut say that feels like truth to me? And if it does, and it feels good, and you have all of this content that you're hearing, then chances are it's good. Okay. But sometimes you can get fooled. So be careful of that. So unknowingly getting the wrong kind of help. Just because therapy's hard doesn't mean it's not working. But after some time, if you look back and you realize it's just getting worse, maybe you need a new therapist or a new program or a new something. Okay. Number 4 thing to do if your partner has cheated on you is to work on yourself by yourself.
I actually did that, if I can just share this real quick, because right after the second affair, after I ended it and I realized this was going nowhere, I was like, I have to change. I have to change, because if I died and I stood before God, I'd be just toast. I'd be totally screwed. So I like by myself, I started like every day. I bought the DVD of The Secret and I would listen to it every single morning legit for like.
And you got rich, right?
I know, right? I got rich with delusions on working on myself. I was really just I was like, if I can just like figure out some way of putting distance between what happened then and where I am now, if I can somehow find that again, that secret sauce, that unicorn, then I can do this. I legit was in my head by myself saying, somehow I can probably do this. That was just what my reasoning was like, I can do this. But I have to do this. And that got me nowhere super fast, actually.
I think working on yourself by yourself is so important. And just for somebody to have that their own proactive determination to change their life is awesome.
Well, it's probably the majority of our audience, if they are choosing to do anything that's proactive in their recovery, it might be alone. Our story of Coby and I working recovery, it looks like it's like ideal, right? Because we both found healing and here we are together. But it was very much like, you know, and staying in our own lanes. And so that whole idea of work on yourself for yourself is exactly where you want to be, in my opinion, because it's that self-discovery of really figuring out. I mean, I was how old? 34 when I started really figuring out who I am. I'm 40. I still don't know who I am. I'm still figuring that out. But I have a lot of like, I do know this and I do know that I didn't know before. So
I think work on yourself for yourself is awesome. I when it comes to addiction and when it comes to betrayal trauma, work on yourself for yourself by yourself doesn't work as well. And what I mean by that is if you want your healing to accelerate and to be so much deeper and so much more real for you, then it's all about vulnerability and it's all about connection. And so working with an expert who understands the right resources to bring you out of isolation and darkness and into the light is one of the critical pieces of recovery. And so working on yourself by yourself is awesome. But working on yourself for yourself with others and with guidance from experts is the best.
Yeah. It's interesting, Brannon, because when I started working on myself for myself, right, I wasn't actually working on healing and recovery. I was really just like, I got to figure out who I am. I got to figure out how to start taking care of myself. It's when I started Mama Bear Fitness. And I did have this like mentor that I'm staying accountable to. And it's like personal development. It was all still very new to me. Like, I'm going to become a better person. Right. So very similar to like Coby and The Secret. I'm like reading books and listening to podcasts, something I'd never done before. And there was a giant difference between that was awesome. And it really helped me become the woman I wanted to be. As I got into group, I hated group. I hated getting into specialized therapy, into group and saying, great, now I have to actually say my story out loud. Oh, great. Now I have to like be friends with these girls who had the same crap happen. Like, I don't want to do this. Right. But that is, for me, that was the step that got me there, was like, I know myself enough to say, I need this. And then to step into that vulnerability. It took a few weeks for me, but I got there and it did change things. And having that accountability and having that support, having someone to stretch you. You know, I know Brannon's good at stretching his clients, making them a little uncomfortable, but that's what you want. Right? Yeah. That's what growth and change takes.
That made a huge difference. And let me just contrast this, because I started this particular bullet point with talking about, I would just listen to The Secret for the first like year before I started specialized therapy. And then once I started specialized therapy and actually attended your foundations group, Brannon, there was a huge difference for me. There was a huge, huge difference for me, because although I felt like motivated by watching The Secret, I was no more skilled. I was no more educated on exactly what I needed and where I was. And so having information by people who, like an expert like yourself, who knows how to treat it, but also having guidance from other people who've been along the way, that changed things for me. And I went through this process of feeling super uncomfortable going to specialized therapy, to loving specialized therapy. I would leave and and I would be so filled with hope because of the knowledge that I had gained. And that was in huge contrast to when we went to therapy as a couple and got the wrong kind of help. I would leave pissed, just mad and fuming. For literally for the first mile and a half down the road, there was a Sonic drive-through that I would pass. And once I got to that, I was like, okay, I can let it go now. But leaving specialized therapy, it filled me not only with hope, but also with knowledge. And it led me on a path that continued to give. And to this day, it still does. It still gives to me and it fills me up. And it's not just motivation. It's like tangible, real help.
Well, a lot of what we do and a lot of what we're doing now, this conversation is the reason why we're doing it. We need to change the name of our podcast to The Expert, the Expert, and the Expert, because Ashlynn and Coby are totally experts. And, we understand recovery like no other, inside and out. We've analyzed every part of it. And that's why we've come together, not only to create these podcasts, but to create guided systems and processes for people who otherwise wouldn't know the next step to take forward. And things like our Shattered to Thriving program that has just helped so many people walk them through the process of healing, both individually and as a couple. And that's our goal. Our goal is to help people get to that other side and look back and say, oh, I had the guidance I needed right when I needed it. Right?
Knowing what the first step was paramount, and knowing how to do that was paramount for me. And once I was able to take that first step, then things changed forever, and they've continued to evolve and get better and change. So, I just feel really lucky that we get to do this, because we do know what it's like to be in the dark corners of addiction and betrayal. But I will say that there's huge parts of me that wish just that we could go back and listen to this podcast.
I know.
While we were
needed it.
We were starting. We desperately.
Wouldn't that have been nice?
Oh my God.
It really would have.
Too bad you couldn't time travel and hear yourself talking in the future to walk you through it.
I would have said it wasn't.
I would have.
Someone's lying and impersonating me, because there's no way.
I know. I would have given myself some serious hope. That's for sure. So
isn't that awesome, Ashlynn? That's pretty cool what you just said.
It really is crazy. And it's definitely not at all what I had in mind when I stepped in those doors to get real help, was that, hey, this is my plan. I'm going to tell the whole world our secrets, right? But what you said, Brannon, is why we show up here every week, even in quarantine, because there really is something special about this, to say Brannon understands, because he meets with thousands, I don't know, over the years. And he can give you that validation and support. And so can Coby and I, in very different ways, hearing both sides of it. That's what was like the beginning steps for me to find empathy, to make sense of the senseless things that were happening. Was just the education part, right? And I didn't necessarily get that where I was at. So
it's a super important thing, and we're really happy that we can be a part of that. So I know that, meaning like a part of that process, because we know what it's like to not have one. So Brannon and Ashlynn, if someone who's listening to this is like, okay, this makes sense, I want to take a step forward, what do I do next?
All right.
Was that Tiku barking?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
It's part of recording at home with COVID-19 in full swing, but
all right, Coby. So I want to answer your question. So
okay.
The options we went through, okay, you just got cheated on, so you could leave, you could stay and hope for the best. You can go unknowingly get the wrong kind of help. You can work on yourself by yourself, or you can work with experts who guide you through the process.
Yeah.
And you can find those processes and that guidance at, Ashlynn, do you want to say?
If I dare, not with the dog barking. You can go to our website. We are, like Brannon said, some of these experts. And so it's beyond-enough.com. And slash, what is it? Forward slash. Back. I never say it right. Someone else say it. I do it wrong every time.
beyond-enough.com forward slash or backslash? Forward slash step one.
And it's the number one.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. We'll put it in the show notes because I just confused you really bad.
But despite all that, guys, we want you to know that it is possible to from where you are now currently, no matter if you have been cheated on, lied to, no matter if you've done it or you've been on the receiving end of it, there is hope, and it is possible.
Yeah. Well, and we've done all these steps. So it's not like you're in the wrong one if you're in one of them. Yeah. It's just keep moving. So let's see. There is a free set of resources when you get to that site. So again, beyond-enough.com /step one, the number one. And so even just go get some free resources right now. And that's one more step in your process. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you being here, guys. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hop over, rate and review. That's the way that you can help other people who are in this dark and hard, challenging place in life. And again, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Okay, guys, take care.